Hello, hello.
Hey Scott, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. How are things?
Busy, 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 but
Yeah.
good. I've been playing with Cursor's new CLI agent plus GPT-5 today, and
Oh, yeah.
it's so far seems pretty solid. Like
Really?
yeah. Well, plus they're subsidizing it right now, right? So it's free at the moment. Um,
Right.
but seems to be doing as good or better than AmpCode, which I had been using, which is pay per token, which is so it adds up a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not as steerable, I think. Like they don't have the nice like app mention feature working in their CLI and other things, but it seems to be doing pretty good. We'll see how it does when they actually start counting tokens and how the costs measure up.
Yeah. Did I see it in the Latent Space Discord? Oh, I saw somebody, I think it was Kieran Klassen from Every, created a sub agent that uses the Cursor CLI for Claude Code. So you can actually use GPT-5 in Claude Code.
I'm sure Anthropic loves that.
And if anyone tried Zen MCP, I've found that really useful for using O3 before this, and you can use GPT-5 via the API as well. I just haven't had a chance to see what that's like.
Well, I'm excited for this presentation, Scott, because I think, as Manuel was talking about, none of the tools, the coding tools and the models, like their moats are small and constantly being one-upped. But where we will have enduring gains is where we learn how to use them all better. And so that's, I hope, what you're going to be teaching us today.
Yeah, I hope that's what you all yeah, I hope that comes through. I mean, it is very fluid, and it's actually something Manuel and I have talked about a few times of just like, you know, while these techniques might not like you pick up these techniques based on the limitations of the models at the time, and even if you don't necessarily need them anymore, you have that tool in your toolbox for when some kind of situation arises. So at the very least, if we're already moved on from document-based vibe coding systems into subagents and GPT-5, hopefully there's a nugget in here.
I personally find using like I've been using coding agents now, particularly AMP a lot, and I find the document-based workflow is still high value, especially for more complex things. So,
Yeah.
we're in an existing system, we're not vibe coding something from scratch. There are, substantial, you're changing, you're refactoring, or things like that. Like, use the agent to build a document, review it, critique it, fix it, then have the agent build it. But like that document still is sort of a key grounding loop.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, my system's kind of I'll walk through what I talked about in the post and then kind of like where I've gone, but it's definitely changed a bit and gotten a little uh yeah, a little bit less systematic as different things have come up. Oh.
All right, let's just give like 1 more minute for folks and then I can ping the Discord. All right. Yeah, why don't you go ahead? I'll go off camera. Do you want me to watch the comments or you got it?
Let's see. Yeah, pop in if I seem to miss anything. Um, I guess we can jump in. How's that for uh text size? That's
Looks
good.
readable here.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks everybody, and thanks for letting me come share. Yeah, so this is a going to be talking about document-based vibe coding systems. This all kind of came about as I was working on. We actually kind of been trying to challenge myself working with agents to use programming languages and tooling that I don't know, so I won't jump in and like edit the code. And so this was for an app that was built in Tori using Rust and TypeScript, and both languages I absolutely don't know anything about Rust, but and haven't really touched TypeScript. And so basically um, had one of the reasoning models create an an architecture file, and like K-Ball and I were talking about in the beginning, it was, build out a an architecture doc, refine it, ask questions. My primary language, Ruby. Um, a lot of the stuff that I'm building is in Ruby, but it's hard to have like really strong opinions about AI generated code, and when you do, you end up, not really liking what it uh, gives you. So. Um, but yeah, so this, I mean, basically kept it at a really high level. Kept it at a really high level, just like what are these pieces? I didn't really know the libraries or anything, but um, it gave me a architecture diagram, all this stuff. And then what I set up with Claude Code was basically here's the architecture file. Um, we're going to work together where you're going to tell me what you plan to do, and then you're going to do it. Then you're going to tell me what you did, um, and then tell me what in the app to actually change. We're going to work through stories, so I had it go through the architecture diagram, figure out three project phases, break that down into roughly I think I said 15-minute. Actually, let's see if it's in here. Yeah, it came back with some of these phases around like estimated timeline 6 to 8 weeks with dedicated development, um, which obviously wasn't true. Um, and let's see here. Sorry, I'm also kind of peeking at the chat. Um, Sorry. And yeah, basically broke things out into stories, create project plan documents for those. It came up with three. And as you can see, if you can see some of the text on the left here, there's a bunch of other plan files that I've used. And then as we were going through, if there are anything that you run into that we don't want to keep going over, or like we end up, bug fixing, store that in the technical considerations markdown file, and load that. And so since we were doing like, three phases of like 40 user stories each, we were going to start and stop sessions all the time. If you have to compress context, it forgets all of the roles and process you set up, and you end up getting a whole bunch of junk in your context. So my process was very much you do a story and kill it, make a commit, push it up. Um, oh, interesting. Um, but yeah, and then I can jump over to the pair programming dot markdown and or actually, sorry. Um, but yeah, and then when I would start a session, I would basically say read Claude.markdown, follow the steps for quick start a new session, and then tell me the plan for the next story, and it would read all these files and go through. And so pair programming.markdown is pick up the next story, uh, create a plan, implement the plan, testing and verification, and then human verification. So summarize what was implemented, list what should be visible, and provide specific testing steps for the human. Um, yes, we will. I will definitely go through a process, just kind of setting the stage here. Um, so yeah, there's the pair programming, and then one other thing that did end up happening in the technical considerations ended up getting really long, and so I ended up not having enough context to do an entire story. So had Claude break this down into a technical considerations folder where it could look up different things and have a reference for anything that we might run into, because it does tend to once you find it make a once it does something wrong, you'll find that it'll do that thing wrong over and over. And so having these technical considerations docs helped a lot. But before we jump into the process, are there any questions of what I kind of just showed here? And I can show it actually in action.
How much of this is project specific versus you carry over from project to project?
So this one was the first one, so it was very project specific. So if you see the pair programming dot markdown, outlines the pair programming workflow for Protocol-y. There's PN, PM, build, and no bundle. I've started to use this. Um, I've started to, when I start a new session or start a new project, I'll say to the Claude code, look at the pair programming doc in this folder or this file and adapt it for this project. Um, but yeah, I guess I'd say, the structure is common across project, but like the details, I'll usually have Claude jump in and change. So like the handful of documents to start things out. Manuel, how do you clean up the sea of Markdown files? You'll see as I switch around different projects, I kind of don't. Um, I did see that there was a new feature with Claude Code recently where uh, you can add additional kind of like permanent working directories. And so whenever I find the time, I'm going to try to, set it up to be my Obsidian directories. And so have it like right there and write and read from the Obsidian directory for the project. But I haven't done that yet. And I just have a mess of files in all different places. Like uh, sometimes it decided to put them in tech docs in this project and docs in this other project. It decided to use two different folders. Um, but I've generally just been pretty hands off, letting it do what it wants, and like the parts where I've designed where I want to review, I'll get an extra kind of time to look at it, but um, not really not really being very strict about any of that. Yikes. How much did you write or come up with versus how much was go set it up like this? Almost all of it was go set it up like this, Claude. I think I wrote a handful of sentences of like what I wanted. Then it would edit the doc, and then I would do a quick skim and say, you know, let it go. And if it if anything went wrong, I'd say, this sucks, or like this doesn't work. Uh, Update the doc, update the doc with this new thing that we know now. Uh, the architecture decisions were mostly Claude. I would usually kind of let Claude do the first pass, and then once we start running into issues, jump in and be like, yeah, it probably needs to go this other way. Oh, instruction architecture. Uh, the instruction architecture meaning,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
can you
So
go?
basically what I'm getting at is, um, so you have like your pair programming, your technical considerations, et cetera, et cetera. Were those things, were like those kinds of documents, did you decide like, I think this is the way that the agent should be instructed, so I think we should make a technical considerations, browser architecture, or blah blah blah, and then hey Claude, go do it like this? Or did you say, hey, like, Claude, I think this project is going to need some structure of how the instructions are formatted. What do you think we should do? Also go do it.
Got it. Yeah, it was mostly me on like the architecting the different docs, mostly because it was, you know, the way I was thinking about it, where this is where the architecture lives, this is the process I want to do, these are the stories. Um, and I think in my mind, I have this vision of like those being somewhere else and not in markdown files. Like maybe the stories are in some project management tool. Um, Maybe the pair programming is baked into an agent at some point.
Okay, so kind of like modeling it off of like, this is how I would normally build software. So I'd probably have this in a project management tool. So Claude's probably going to need this, so I should make this doc for him, kind of thought process.
Right, right. And then as I'm kind of prompting, being able to, as I'm thinking about it, like this thing is here, go look there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really just like kind of ergonomics for me as I was prompting.
Cool. Good influence.
Um, cool. Any other questions before we jump into a couple of demos? All right. So let's see. So I guess for the high level, the process that I kind of use, I use tmux, and I usually, this is something I've been doing for a long time, is each session is tied to a project, and then each project has, I don't know, are they tabs or windows? Um, First tab is Claude Code, second tab is Vim. And then what I've been doing is basically I'll switch between different projects that I'm working on. So here, and I've got this, going to be doing this update to the library that I work on called Sublayer, and change things around. So let's say, actually, I don't even know if I have the pair programming thing set up in this one, but I've got this generator update doc that has a plan around how to change this interface from, I have this thing that's like LLM output adapter, and then change it to just generates, and then use kind of object literals to define the output. And so let's say check out update.md and come up with a list of stories to change to make this update and make sure the stories are about a few hours in length, and I don't know, make sure there's something for the user to test at each end of each story. And then write that to and then, just let that go and switch over to another project. Like, let's see, we can go to, there's this game that we're working on called the 12th Estate. That's kind of like a programming game that uses MCP for input. Yeah, this comes from a lot of years of just doing the same process over and over. I don't let's see. So let's see what we were going to do. Can you create a plan for actually, let's just go ahead and do say so that's I'd usually just like kind of ad lib here. I could probably set up a hook for this, but I've just been like throwing in follow the steps for new session, quick start here, give me the plan and let that go. And it'll come up with some kind of plan. We're back here, still going. I've also got another project that's in Swift, another language that I'm not super familiar with. And this one is bouncing around. Okay, so we've got a plan for the next story, demos, chapter structure is the first pending story in phase 3. Create the foundation, design tutorial friendly location progression. And so kind of the way that I've designed this is that I'm not really looking too much at the docs, more just that there is a doc. And then before it does any work, I'll get a chance to kind of check it out. And so this one, I think we're actually check out what we have built already for the first room before come up. Make sure the plan is. So kind of having these checks in here that, even if the docs aren't exactly right, I've got a chance to kind of like jump in and guide it into the right spot. So there's usually the plan beforehand, it'll do the work, it'll tell me what it did, and sometimes it'll tell me what it did and tell me what to check. Sometimes I'll see what it did and be like, no, that's not right, do it a different way. And also be able to check the app, be like, this thing is not in the right spot, or it's almost there, but when I click this button, nothing happens. Okay, so revised plan, original story, acceptance. Okay, so it actually looks like that story was already finished. Depth system implementation. And we'll come back to that one. Back here, okay. Created generator update stories .markdown with 14 user stories. Looks like the first 4 stories are integrating the literal gem. And yeah, I guess another thing to call out here, I've had a bunch of a bunch of questions about what format do you have the stories in? Is it like given when then or as a developer? And I haven't really kept a tight leash on that either. Just let it do whatever it came up with. Um, and so good. Uh, yeah, how do you mentally deal with the context switching? Funny you ask. I'm trying to figure that out too. Um, it is kind of wild, but I mean the thing that yeah, the thing that helps with the context switching is having it prompt me each time of like, here's what I did, here's what 40 years of unmedicated ADHD. That can be it too. Um, kind of performance enhanced a little bit. Um, let's see. Yeah, I'm just go ahead and turn that on. But yeah, the thing is, it'll tell me what it did, and so that's kind of if I'm ever like I'm not sure, that's usually a guide for me to add that into the docs of like I didn't know um you know didn't know what we were doing. Oh, no, yeah, sure. Uh, next time, give me additional context. Yeah, K-ball. That's kind of where my mind has been of just like how can I have AI prep me for the context because I'm gonna keep context switching. Like that's not gonna go away. Do I find it enjoyable? Um, it, exactly. Yeah, I haven't tried Vibe Kanban or Kanban yet. Um, I'm trying to build something myself to help feed the context to me as I switch. But I guess if that doesn't work out, I can always jump over to that. Um, yeah, how are you all doing with the context switching I'm doing? I should have asked that. Um, this one's writing the CSS.
I mean, I feel like I can only handle like two threads at once, really, realistically. Like
Yeah,
I can, I've tried to do more things at a time and have it going, and it only works for relatively trivial types of stuff.
hmm.
I suppose as the agents continue to get better and I require less actually looking in on it, uh, that may change. But I also find if you're not careful, like these tools make everything faster. So if it starts going in the wrong direction, like if you're not careful, it goes really far in the wrong direction and you get a ton of slop or code debt.
Yeah. That's I think another thing of keeping these changes scoped small so that if it does go off the rails, it hasn't gone that far. And I'll usually story by story make a commit. And so I've found that, if I need to just like wipe what it did, it's no big deal. Um, yeah, the smaller changes I've found help that. And then I guess that kind of helps the context switching too. Um, because there's not as much to do there. And yeah, like Manuel says, I think a lot of these apps are scoped enough in my head that I can or they're scoped small enough that they're not, massive projects. I think, and the other thing that I found helpful is they're pretty separate projects, right? Like there's a Mac OS app, a game, and a gem that I'm doing here, and I don't have to spend much time thinking about like does this change step on the toes of another change in this existing app? It's all just like kind of like a single thread in a single app. Um, but um, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that anybody would like me to try? Any other questions? Brad, you said 15, 30 minute chunks. It's really kind of just a guess. Like Claude, I think I probably should have said half a day or 1 point story, but like I think each time I do it, I change it up to try to get Claude to scope them correctly. I've tried something like it needs to be uh it needs to be big enough that um it needs to be big enough that there's something for me to actually test. Because like if I try to say if I don't add that in there, it usually does something like this where, and I think I even added it in here, like added the gem, like go check and see if the gem's installed, which like isn't super helpful. Um, or it's like not a big enough change to like really do anything with. But if I don't give it that like guideline of keep it small, it ends up being something really big, like K-Ball said, and like changed hundreds of files. And I, don't have my head around what it actually did. And by the time it's doing a whole bunch of different things, it's usually wrong. So kind of like scoping it. Um, yeah, basically trying to find that right scope where it's not too big that there's some measurement that's like the chance of AI being wrong increases by the square, the cube of the number of tokens that are output. So like trying to thread that line of like it's not wrong, it's not like extremely wrong, but also big enough that uh you know it's a meaningful chunk of work. What does wrong mean in that frame? Uh I mean, wrong is in like, it doesn't work or it's, you know, yeah, basically that it doesn't work um, or something. Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you think about it, like if I prompted, I could get 100% correctness or accuracy if I wanted Claude to just write one line at a time. And then I'm kind of not as confident if I had to do like a million lines. Then like so there's some sweet spot in there that it'll give me a meaningful chunk of work and speed me up and uh not cause me more pain. Um, how do I see this in a team context? Uh, you know, I think I said this to somebody the other day. I think teams probably end up looking like I read this book once about test kitchens for Michelin star restaurants. And like this whole idea of like everybody has their role. They're a master at their craft and they're all working in the same theme, but like everybody has their things they're working on. And so I think like uh you know project level separation uh is so much easier than trying to coordinate between even two people because you're moving so fast. I don't even do two Claude codes in the same project because there's just too much chaos that could go on, too much overlap, which maybe that says something about the architectures of the things I'm working on. But It's just never worked for me. Um, I haven't tried subagents yet. I've been planning to, um, but maybe in a couple weeks I'll write up something about trying them or try to write some of my own. Uh, it still feel like coding to you? Uh, kind of. It's it's definitely a lot more, even though it's not exactly right. I think like at some point, if you just kind of like you're looking at features, you're guessing like how they might be built and talking about it like that, um, it ends up being a little bit more on the, kind of architect is the wrong word. I don't know, coding is like we don't really have the words for it right now. It's not exactly coding, it's not exactly architecting, but it's kind of like, you know, ma- like inventing or materializing some piece and then fitting it in, seeing if it fits, and then like changing it if it doesn't fit. Um, and kind of like coding or creating in that way, but without code. Like I hardly ever look at code. I don't think I've really opened Vim to look at code more than a few hours over the last month. It's mostly been looking at Markdown files. Um, yeah, spec first workflow. Yeah, actually, I guess speaking of the spec first workflow and conversations that Manuel, you and I have had about like uh, TDD. Um, I haven't really been doing much TDD and have mostly just been letting it go. And then afterwards, if there's something that's like this thing has stopped changing and this thing needs a little bit more, or this thing has stopped changing, or this thing is giving us a lot of problems, that's when I'll break something out as like a module and then have it get, either be a library or something off to the side and be like, give this 100% test coverage, and that piece will stop being a problem. It'll get out of context, and I can either have a Claude code running on that library or, just never have to worry about it again. Use this flow in brownfield code bases. Um, kind of. I've started adding it, so it's not exactly brownfield, as I think in the way that you're mentioning K-ball, but like APM, I originally started with the flow of having a Claude chat up and kind of doing it by hand because I was like, well, I should learn how to do Swift. And and then that quickly shifted to there's all these changes I need to make. I should have AI write out the list of changes and then actually just do the list of changes. And so it was hand coded at first and then have switched over to vibe coding it. Um, I have actually the one thing that I've done in along that and some code bases I'm unfamiliar with is actually have it go through and be like, this is a library we want to use. How do these things work? This is a library we want to use. Here's an example app of using that library. Um, Write out a doc of how all these pieces fit together and how this works. Take that doc over to APM and say, here's a generic doc of how to use this library, adapt it for our use, look through the code base and adapt it for our use case. Um, and so that ended up working really well. Um, but yeah, I think brownfield code bases, I think the only thing limiting brownfield code bases would be uh getting everybody on board. I think, you know, you kind of need everybody on the team to turn the keys on AI at once, because like if one person is and one person or and the other people on the team aren't, you're going to get a lot of people really pissed off at like why do I have to review all of these AI slop PRs and not this person made like 20 PRs today. I'm going to use AI to help me review. I'm going to use AI to help me review these PRs and make these comments and call these things out. Like if you do want to have like multiple people, it's about everybody's using AI to augment themselves for all the steps of the process. But if you have a holdout, like either everybody's going to hate the person using AI, or I mean that's just what's going to happen. Oh, so yeah, I guess I wasn't kind of showing the screen. So, yeah, a lot of this is, so I'll have in, let's see, and like Protocol-y is a Tory app, which uses, what was it called? The Vite, Um, and so all the changes, it's recompiled, it's changes, and it updates live. Um, and so you basically see it as it goes. You can do it for React apps as well. The Swift app is a bit of a pain in the ass to see it, in that like I have to build and sometimes it doesn't actually build the app, and so there's build errors and you have to kind of go back. But um, and yeah, I'm using the things that I'm creating all the time. Um, but yeah, test is generous. Um, Yeah, yeah, because I've seen the same thing. Just the traditional engineering background, the whole idea of you know, what does this do? Like, why is there all this extra code? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't even get called. That definitely offends a lot of sensibilities. We can jump into something else if anybody's interested, or invite some more people up to chat.
Have you tried actually using this in a team context at all, or is it still all just for solo projects primarily?
It's yeah, it's basically just me right now. I haven't really had a chance to try it in a team context. I think I think everybody would have a very bad time.
I think that yeah, there are very few teams I think that can actually handle the code volume at this point. So I think that's an interesting problem to solve.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of spots in a team aren't prepared for this. You know, small startups where you've got one or two people. I think that'll be painful. Or I guess if you have two or more people, it'll be very painful. But like, you know, if somebody were to adopt this in like, you know, a big enterprise, like you've got you've got the teams of dozens of people that are you know, used to making monthly or quarterly releases, that now all of that work is done in a day. You've got the product teams that are used to like planning out quarter by quarter. You've got the, you know, and the teams up and up of like planning the year and all of those things, that like all of that got compressed. So I mean, imagine being a VP of a department and you've got, you know, 10 10 projects, and you know, you're in the planning meetings, you're in the meetings of like what all changed, and now that's you know, now the contents of the quarterly review are now happening weekly. That's I think a lot of people are in for a lot of pain.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of why my outlook is that the 6 to 8 person startup is should be able to beat out the like 100 person enterprise in terms
Yeah,
of like velocity and product quality at this point, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But it's still hard to coordinate the 6 to 8. So I think flow is up here too.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna read the question in case you hadn't caught it, but it looks like you.
Oh, got it. How much has changed since a month or so when you published? Um, so yeah, about a month or so, it was definitely that much more structured. I've I've shifted to having it be a little bit more ad hoc. Like like I don't know if the when I was showing those like to the docs directory and the tech docs directory, that became a little bit more ad hoc. Um, I've also stopped doing so that first project that was like 3 phases. I've stopped having so many phases up front. Like even the game that I was showing you, it had 6 phases, and like by the time we got to the third, it was like none of this makes sense anymore, so we need to change. So I've started to do, much more, much closer to like here's almost like epic level rather than doing multiple epics up front. Custom tools, no, not. I mean, I've started to work on a product for the context switching, like K-Ball said, that was been the biggest problem is uh, you know, what I was showing you, switching between sessions, but a lot of times I was finding myself going back to a session or forgetting that I had kicked a session off and coming back and being like, ah shit, that agent has just been sitting there idle that I could have been it could have been moving. So working on something to help me uh, switch between projects and try to get above the like 3 to 4 projects that I've been able to handle. I'd like to try to get to like 10 or 15 projects in parallel. Brad has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask on that last point, like how do you start a new project if it's a little bit more ambiguous, or you're not really sure, you don't have a specific plan of the different phases? Like, are you sitting down with Claude to write the initial scope and to plan out the phases?
Yeah, I'll switch between. I actually have been started to do Grok, Claude, and I guess it was ChatGPT the last time. I'll just have like a paragraph of like, this is the project I want to build. Create me a design doc or create me a comprehensive design doc, and then look kind of like skim through all 3 of them and see which one seems the most reasonable, and then throw that into Claude. Be like, here's the design doc, here's the project. Uh, break this out into user stories.
I had one. I dropped it in chat here. Did you other than the context switching tool, have you made any like major changes to your Vim like configuration or plugin setup, or any like tmux add-ons or anything that's like not or any workflow changes other than sometimes I tab over to the other terminal and ask Claude a thing, basically.
Um, Not really. I mean, the biggest change to my Vim workflow is that I don't really use Vim anymore. Um,
Yeah.
I have been starting to explore like kind of tools to help switch between these tmux sessions. So ways to kind of integrate into other Mac apps. So like I mentioned, like switching, if I could have project name, terminal window and all of that be something deterministic that I can throw into an app or even an MCP, I can have that switching a lot. I'm thinking it could have that switching a lot easier, but I haven't dug into building any kind of like custom tmux plugins.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction that I've been heading with it, where it's like I don't I I spend less time in NeoVim, but I'm also trying to like hack NeoVim into like a command center more so than a text editor at this point.
Yeah.
With like, yeah, there's like I have like an MCP manager plugin in there, and then like a few different coding agents, and then Cloud Code windows can pop up in there and stuff like that. But yeah, I really haven't like dialed it in to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
It's been
more I
tough.
learn about these, the less time I spend in the IDE. So,
Yeah, I know. That's what I was having a conversation with somebody recently that like almost makes sense to like one of the things we were building, thinking about it like an IDE for IDEs or like an IDE that like being able to switch between all of those different projects is the new like development environment, right?
what do you mean by that when you say like an IDE? Just like you want something that can handle terminal, that can like quickly move you across the file system and see what the terminal is doing in there, and then am I missing something else for this sort of coordination machine that we imagine here?
Yeah, I guess like thinking about like an IDE as like as a tool to help you develop a single product that like the like next abstraction layer is like an
Okay.
IDE for coordinating and like working on uh working on the products from another level up.
Got it. So it's like I have Cursor and Windsurf and AMP and Claude Code all running, and I need something to sort of help me supervise all of those things going at the same time, kind of deal.
Right. Right. And you might be using, you might be using Climb for something, or, something
Right.
in VS Code for another cursor that like it doesn't in the same way that you might use, you know, NeoVim for all different types of languages or different types of files. This is more uh, you know, all different types of
Oh,
projects.
and right now the main thing that I'm using all of those for is for the subscription to number of tokens I'm allowed to have ratio for each with each of the platforms being on sale. So it's like
Yep.
I do actually use 4 different IDEs, but only because like one's charging me $10 a month and has 500 cascade requests, and then Cursor's got the subscription that I got on the cheap. So yeah, it seems
Oh, that's
seems like
incredible.
a generally valuable thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Oh yeah, good question from Flo. I think. Are you making use of like work trees at all to try, or you don't use multiple Claude codes at the same time? You just do one, right?
I don't use multiple Claude codes in the same project. I just use a single one in each project.
Okay. Yeah, the for multi-boxing Claude code, I like there's something there around work trees. I haven't figured out exactly what it is yet, but that can sort of help keep things more sane in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe like thinking about that, I think the other thing that's kept me from using work trees is, these are all kind of smaller projects, newer projects, and so they don't have huge backlogs. And so maybe I need to create a Claude code that's like a more of a product manager and helps like build out my backlogs for me. Because like that's usually the like first step is like build this backlog out and then it just churns through it.
Yeah, I'm finding that's kind of the direction I'm finding like the /agents command pushing me in, where it's like, okay, I kind of want one guy that only has tools to run tests, and all it does is run tests and then yell at the other ones when they're messing something up. Well, and then I want one that has maximally clear context to only write code that is specifically instructed to write the code that it's writing, and then I want one that only does the searching of the code base and composes the context for the next one, yada yada yada.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to give that a shot. I've been meaning to, but Just haven't.
Well, anything else from it? Yeah, do you want to do a quick protocol-y plug while we have the last couple minutes here, since I don't hear any, or I don't see any other questions coming through chat.
Yeah, so Protocol-y, that was one of those kind of like what kicked all of this off. It's a tool to help you. Actually, I guess I can share it. Let's bring it up here. It's a tool to help you explore MCP servers. So we're building in another product we're building called APM, which is kind of like that command center. We're integrating a lot of MCP servers and using MCP servers um, as like a plugin system. So I needed something to help me test MCP and see what was working, test the tool calls before building it into the app and like going through all that hassle. So kind of thinking about this as like a desktop version of Postman uh, for specifically for MCP. Um, but it's also been really interesting to see stuff like jumping into Claude Code and looking at their MCP server and seeing the way that they have like the tools described, like and how they've changed over time. So like task is just massive bash. Um, got it's not connected. Um, okay, yeah. So I've been testing out an APM's MCP server here. Um, let's see. But yeah, this was all vibe coded, fancy and clean. I really my instructions to Claude were make it look like a professional desktop app. And it did so many things that are just like not expected. I mean, it gave theme switching. Um, we also have it added high contrast mode, font size switching. It created an intro tour to walk through all the features. Um, and
Well, you didn't ask it to create the intro flow, it just did it.
it showed up in one of the stories, and I was like, yeah, go ahead and give it a shot. But the details, I didn't really dig into any of the details beyond that. There was the thing the tour did have trouble with was yeah, it actually still has trouble getting getting the placement of the modal windows, but um, yeah, this was like usually for a V1 of a product that I was building for myself, I wouldn't put a tour in, but it was so painless that just went okay with it. Same with theme switching, like it's usually kind of overkill for V1.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott. We are about at time. We have a speaker for next week. We're back to Claude Code and subagents. I think I'm blanking on his name now, but the guy who kicked off the conversation there that went for however many messages is going to come back and present. So definitely come back for that. If you are working on Oliver, yes, thank you, Flo. If you're working on something you want to share, if you have a cool experiment you want to share, do sign up in the Discord. You just have to talk to the AI in Action bot, and it will get you signed up. And the thing that we've been coming to that I think is great is like it doesn't have to be useful. It doesn't have to be polished. It just has to be interesting because we're here to learn together. So thank you all. Thank you, especially Scott, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you all. See ya.